But it looks like I'm gonna have to make you host when I turn the time over to you, which I'm gonna wait a few minutes to do just because, dang it. Did a little, Lynette, Sue, can either one of you hear me?
Lynette is joined, but her audio is
Yeah,
off. She's muted.
Okay.
Now, can you hear me?
I've started the recording, so.
Yeah.
I don't know why my picture's not showing up.
No, I know. I was just kind of letting you in easy early just to do a little test.
Well, I tested the audio, so it was working.
Yeah, I can hear you. I can hear you.
I don't know why the picture's not working now. And I put makeup on again. Dang it.
We want to be able to see you, darn.
Well, I wonder what's the deal is, huh?
Oh, shoot. I knew I forgot something. I forgot my makeup. Cindy?
Oh, well, you better go do it now.
Yeah, I better.
You for 3 minutes.
I better grab that quick.
Well, heck. I wonder what. Oh.
People.
Now this, Ah, hey.
There
Hello.
you go. We see you now.
Lynn?
Yippee. It's working, yay.
Nice. Cool, cool, cool. All right, I guess we'll go ahead and start letting some people in. And get everybody. You got a few people waiting.
I invited a bunch, Cindy.
Nice. People are texting me here, trying to get in. Looks like we have a few people here. How fun! Oh my goodness, it's nice to see so many of you. A few more coming in.
Hey, Marty, how you doing?
I know, we got another male here to support ya. Yay!
Yeah, well, and he's I watched, we were in the same boot camp.
Yeah, he thought you guys were in the same boot camp together. Yeah. He mentioned that to me. What house was that you guys were in?
Celestial House.
Celestial House. Nice. Nice, nice, nice. Is everybody's audio and visual, everything working good for everybody? I don't know who this is coming. I like it when everybody has their name so I can tell who I'm letting in as somebody that's a friendly person. We had to experience what's not so friendly people. So it's nice. So I'm trying to see who that was that just joined in with the iPhone. The person that's just connecting what says iPhone, could you please introduce yourself? Hey, Mary Ellen.
Hi.
Where are you calling in from?
I invited a person, Clausine, and I think that's her.
Who is that speaking? Let's see. Okay. Hi, Lisa Joy.
Is that you, Clausine?
Hi, it's Denise.
Nice, welcome, welcome. I'm trying to figure out who the person is that says iPhone that doesn't have a name. Oh, it says Angela's iPhone, I see that. And then I see just a person that says iPhone. Just trying to identify everybody, make sure we have everybody here. That's nice. Jenny Callahan. Okay, and Mary Ellen.
Yep.
Okay. Mary Ellen, where are you calling from?
Mary Ellen?
Uh-huh.
Ontario, Canada.
Oh, how fun.
Yeah.
Fun, fun, fun.
Very excited about this. Thank you.
Well, it looks like we're getting people settling in. It's kind of difficult for me to monitor a chat with so many people in the room. So, but I see everybody saying hello. So welcome. Yeah, if it's anyone that's here for the first time, if you'd like to take a minute and just introduce yourself before we get started, that would be fun.
I'm April.
Hi, April. For those of you that know April, she just joined the Phoenix Brightest, and she's Jan Credit's daughter-in-law.
That's me.
Right? Yay! Nice to have you with us.
Welcome.
Hi,
April.
I'm Michelle from Texas. I got invited by one of my Getting Names group members, Teresa.
Nice.
Welcome,
Hi.
Michelle.
I'm Kathleen Israel from San Diego, and I got invited by somebody named Cindy.
Excellent.
I think that's you. I don't know where you found me, but here I am.
Yeah, I'm also, I think it was posted in San Diego's Brightest or something. I think I'm also a member of San Diego's Brightest.
Oh.
So Kathleen, I want to do a quick test with you then. I am under the assumption that San Diego has perfect weather year round. So can you tell us what your weather looks like today?
It's raining.
Okay, temperature.
That'd be perfect weather.
I know, it's perfect for San Diego. Anybody in San Diego who does not appreciate the rain is not from San Diego.
Fair enough.
Yes,
We need our rain.
What's the temperature like?
I think it was 64 when I got up. I don't know where my phone is. I could check it out. It was 64 an hour and a half ago.
Okay.
Oh, nice, nice.
Nice.
Well, it was 109 here yesterday in Arizona. So
Oh my.
crazy. Crazy.
Much
All right.
nicer
Thank
today,
you so much, everyone, for joining us. I'm going to we just like to start with a little bit of a breathing exercise to help everybody feel grounded and present. And again, thank you for being part of this. We're going to be turning the time over to Rob in just a minute. He has quite the presentation to share with us, so we really are excited to be able to share this with him. And I see another man has joined us. Would you like to introduce yourselves? I see Marty here. Oh, that's Buck. Hi, Buck. I didn't recognize you at first. Nice to have you with us. Buck is from Tucson, right?
Absolutely. And I am enjoying the first call here. Thanks for the invitation.
Excellent. Thank you. And you'll notice Buck has an amazing voice. He is actually a singing cowboy. If you ever want to hear a singing cowboy, he's lots of fun.
Is there any other kind of cowboy? Pretty sure all the real ones sing. Just throwing that out there.
Exactly.
Good to have you, Buck.
Well, welcome to everyone. Let's just do our 3 breaths to get us all together and grounded. So we like to start with just getting in a nice, comfortable positions, making sure that your feet are touching the ground if you're able, and stretching your neck and just feeling really present here. Looking for any signs of tension that you may have in your neck or face. And settling in, if you like to, you may close your eyes. We're just going to do 3 breaths together. On the in breath, I'm going to say, may we honor ourselves just as we are today, as we breathe in. And as we breathe out, may we feel safe and protected. And breathe in, may we honor ourselves just as we are today. And may we feel safe and protected. And may we honor ourselves just as we are today. And may we feel safe and protected. All righty. Well, thank you. Welcome to, we have a bunch of other people that are coming in. And as soon as we get them in, we'll go ahead and turn the time over to Rob. 11 more people. So now we're up to 32. Wow. Fun. Welcome those that just joined us. Thank you for being here. If anybody's here for the first time, we'd like to say hello and introduce yourselves, that would be fun. Just to say hello, your name and where you're from, if you're welcome to do that if you'd like. But so welcome to everyone. So nice to see so many of us with us today. I think you probably have heard of Rob Raines before. A few of you have heard of him before. Did you see him just a week or so ago on the call with Susan? He did an amazing job. Rob joined Bright Line Eating in 2018, and he lost 200 pounds in 16 months. So he truly is amazing. And he has come up with something he refers to as 7 power shifts as a way of helping us all to be able to create a powerful identity and to truly change our identity from looking at Bright Line Eating as just a diet and really starting to embrace it as a lifestyle. So let me just, Rob, I know you had said you wanted to record this. Do you have you done that?
Yes, I'm recording.
Okay. So we're going to change it over so that we're going to put it in speaker view so we can give the time now over to Rob, and I'm going to go ahead and change over so that you have the ability to be the host.
Okay.
Find you here.
I appreciate that.
And sorry. There we go.
Okay.
There you go. You should have it now, so that you can share your screen with us.
Okay.
There we go.
Can everyone see the screen? And it should just say the magic of change.
Yes.
Is that all right? That's super. Thanks so much, guys. And I am just really excited to be with you guys and to just have this time with you. Let me share some thoughts just about change. We had a chance to talk about this last month. I think a lot of you were here, but some weren't. So I'll kind of recap a little bit of what we talked about, and then kind of talk a little bit more about the 7 shifts. But one of the things that really struck me as I started Bright Line Eating is that there seemed to be, in my view, as I joined the support groups and looked, there seemed to be kind of 2 camps. And there were those that were doing the Bright Line Eating and seeing massive success. And they were inspirational to me. They really, there were just some great stories, great photos, people that just really inspired me. And I'm sure each of us have kind of had that experience of jumping into the Facebook groups and seeing someone that inspired us. And then on the other hand, there were also some people who were just as determined, just as sincere, just as smart, just as amazing, who were doing it. They were kind of caught in this reboot, resume cycle where it was just constantly back and forth. And that troubled me a little bit because I wondered what is making that difference? Why is it easy not easy, but why is it working so well for one group of people and such a struggle for a different group? And there was from what I could see, there was no difference in willingness, no difference in willpower. There was no difference in intelligence. There was no difference in anything else. There was, men and women were on both sides of the struggle. So it wasn't a gender thing. I couldn't see any dividing line between those that were rocking it and those that were struggling, but still trying just as hard. And so I kind of made that my own matter of study. And as I began the Bright Line Eating journey, I was already studying about identity anyhow. I was reading some books about it. And Susan mentioned it in her book and in some of her vlogs. And so that concept of identity really stuck. And what I realized is that what we have, I struggled myself for 25 years trying to lose excess weight and got up to almost 400 pounds. And I realized that as long as deep down inside, the way that I saw myself was a fat, struggling, overweight man trying to lose weight but not really doing it, as long as that was the identity that I held, no matter what actions I took trying to move in a different direction, that identity would kind of pull me back like a tractor beam. It would just keep me cemented there, right? Maybe you've experienced this or seen a friend that had this experience. January 1st, they decide, you know what, I'm going to start a new exercise routine. They join a gym, they get in there, and they get all excited about it. And by February 15th, they are back home sleeping in and back to those old habits, right? We've all maybe either had an experience like that in our lives or seen someone that had a similar experience of, start this new set of habits and we just get sucked back to where we were before. Because believe it or not, however uncomfortable or however, however physically unhealthy or however unlikely, however much we don't like those results that we're getting, that is actually where our brain is super comfortable. And there's a part of our brain that is designed to keep us safe, to keep us comfortable, to keep us well and safe from all these outside influences. And when we try and change, that part of the brain gets triggered and gets fearful and goes, oh my goodness, they're changing, we're stepping out into the unknown. I don't know, it's not safe. We need to pull back, and it pulls back with a severe force. And it's the same part of the brain. If those of you that have read the Brett Landini book, Susan mentions it's the same part of the brain that controls your autonomic function to breathe. So that if you decided to hold your breath for 2 minutes, you would fail in that, unless you're a Navy SEAL, you will fail in that attempt. You'll be forced by your brain to breathe before that 2 minutes is up. Because it's such a compelling need to breathe that it will force you to do that. Because its drive to keep you alive and safe is stronger than your desire to not breathe. And it works the same with going back on habits. That desire, that compulsion to go back on habits seems at times even stronger than your drive to stay on those habits. So, well, that's not a very encouraging picture, Rob. So what does that mean? That we're going to have trouble changing? So the short answer is no. There's ways to get around that, and that is by changing that identity. You want to move that identity to a brand new one, an identity of someone that keeps that new set of habits. And when that identity changes, and it's not simply a matter of thinking and going, okay, I'm going to keep a new set of habits. There's multiple things that have to change in order for that identity to change. But when it does, then the new identity pulls you toward it with the same force that the old habit was pulling you originally. And when that happens, you reach what Susan calls automaticity. And so it becomes easy to keep those habits. I don't want to say easy, but it becomes easier than it would otherwise be to keep those habits. Let me share a couple of slides here. We talked a little bit about this last time, but the way that most people think life works is that we've got this, who we are at our core, right? And it's just who we are. It's usually binary. We're good or bad. We're rich or poor. We're fat or thin, smart or dumb. It's just all these binary things, and we kind of have this idea inside of us of who we are at our core, and then it gets passed through some arbitrary thing over which we have very little control, some sheer dumb luck. And on the other side, we get results. Okay, an example of this is someone that looks around and says, well, I work as hard as this other person over here, but they're financially succeeding and I'm just poor, or whatever. Or, she's doing her diet and she's doing great and I'm just struggling. I can't stay on. And so those sorts of things, we see these results, but we see ourselves, even though we may talk a good game and say, yeah, I'm thinking real hard or I'm trying real hard or whatever. In the end, we don't see ourselves as having full control over those results. Gratefully, this picture is not accurate. It's just how most people think things work. How life really works is that we've got conscious thoughts and words that we can choose if we want, but a lot of times we let how we're feeling drive those. But we have conscious thoughts and words that influence our subconscious and our emotions. Our emotions influence our actions, and our actions influence our results. We talked a lot last time about how the marketing industry has invested billions of dollars in that prospect that your emotions drive your actions, not your actual thoughts, which is mostly true. We can circumvent that for short periods of time, but when we kind of go into automatic mode, it is our emotions that are driving our actions. In other words, we don't usually do something until we feel like it, and that can be good and that can be bad. So why is it hard to change? We've got our conditions, circumstances, environment, our results, whatever results we're happen to be getting at the moment, notice that big swooping yellow line or yellow arrow, those affect our emotions, right? If we're having a good day, we feel good. If we're having a bad day, we feel bad. That's normally how things work. If that's how you run, that's normal. You're not abnormal. This is, things work that way. The problem is those emotions tend to feed our thoughts and words, and our thoughts and words influence the emotions. And so we create this feedback loop. So if we're having a bad day, that basically starts this kicking feedback loop where we actually begin to program ourselves to continue to have a bad day. And it happens over and over and over. And so that those bad day emotions drive our actions, which are just limited and less creative, which drive, and usually frustrated, which then drive our results, which is usually results in a bad day. Our results are not just the things that happen around us, but the way we interpret them, okay? And so really the only control, the direct control that we have is over our thoughts and words, because that is how you change any of those things. As I mentioned, it's hard to change because we are waiting until we feel like it. Mel Robbins talks a little bit about this too, that it's difficult to change because we're waiting until we feel like it. Have you ever gone on any of the groups and heard someone say, I'm psyching myself up to start Bright Line Eating in a week, or something like that. I'm psyching myself up to, start the 14-day challenge. I'm not quite ready yet, so I'm going to start in maybe, maybe a month or maybe a couple of weeks. Anyone ever heard anything like that? Yeah? Okay, I'm seeing a few head nods, right? And that's again, normal, no judgment. But that the fault in that thinking is that we're waiting until we feel like it before we do it. And as I showed you before, with that big swooping yellow arrow, we're not going to usually feel like it. If our results are poor, all right, so truth number one, while you're experiencing a negative result, you will never feel like it. You're never going to feel excited and empowered and capable while you are experiencing a negative result. That's life, right? Again, seeing that swooping yellow line just as a reminder, while we're experiencing a negative result, our emotions are always going to feel like doing the things that will get us that result again. So with that truth, how can I ever change? What can we do differently? And the truth number two, and the good news is, you and I have control over what we experience. We can choose our conscious thoughts and words, which can be different than our current emotions and our current results. And that's okay. And I'll talk a little bit more about those in a moment. So what is our identity? That's those thoughts, emotions, everything. What do they influence? Our identity is made up of three things: our self-image, our paradigms, and our core unquestioned beliefs. Things that are so ingrained that we have not even bothered to question them and think any differently. And they may seem irrational. They may seem totally wrong. I remember hearing a story of a young girl who one day was wearing, I think she was like 13, 14, something like that, 12, somewhere in there. And she was wearing a swimsuit, and some boys were walking behind her. And one of them made a terribly rude comment about her legs, the shape of her legs or something like that. And she went for another 30 or 40 years never being afraid to wear a swimsuit because she didn't want to show her legs. And after realizing that fear and overcoming it, people that knew her well were like, you're absolutely beautiful. Like, why would you feel like you couldn't wear a swimsuit? You have no need to hide your legs. They look fantastic. I'm not here to say that legs are important, but an important part of our look. But what I am saying is that core unquestioned belief went for years. She went for years not questioning that belief, and it drove an emotion. It gave her an emotion of severe self-consciousness that drove an action of having a limit that she placed on herself. I will never do this, even though she would have absolutely enjoyed wearing a swimsuit. And we tend to have thoughts and feelings like that, things that we just don't even question, that are just part of that. It's like a mirror that we look in every day, and it's warped, but we look in it and go, oh, that must be how I look. And so I need to believe that and go with it. So that third truth then is that we can purposely, deliberately change our identity. And when we do, like I said, it will pull us toward that new identity. And it takes a little bit of time, so there's a little bit of energy involved in that beginning of the change. That's what Susan refers to as that escape velocity. It takes us a little bit of time. That willpower, that energy is put into changing that identity, but when it is, where that change just pulls us along. So let me share a few ways that we can change that identity. So according to psychologists, there's 2 ways to change your identity. One is having a massive, very emotional, very impactful experience, a deeply impactful experience. Usually it's a negative one, right? So something like having a heart attack or having a loved one die or having a divorce or something like that. Those things, just, they shake you up and you have a really quick paradigm shift. You have a really quick identity change. That's one way. The other way is something called constant spaced repetition, where we over and over just slowly and gently and patiently program that new identity into ourselves until it becomes a part of who we are. The problem with that first method is that really deeply, hugely impactful moments are really hard to orchestrate. They happen and it's usually a surprise. And secondly, they're usually negative. So it's not usually something that you want to plan, even if you could. Constant spaced repetition, though, is something that we were able to do. It's having deliberate thoughts, deliberate words, something I'm not doing in the last 10 seconds, but having very deliberate thoughts, deliberate words, and creating an experience in our own minds. Creating that so compellingly that our brain actually can't tell the difference between whether or not we've experienced that. There are, I don't know if you're aware of this, but the subconscious mind, if you can visualize something and do it with enough detail and enough emotion, your subconscious brain cannot tell the difference between having actually had that experience or having only experienced it in your head. There's some documented scientific experiments around this. For the sake of time, I don't want to launch into those, but I'd be more than happy to share those after the fact. But basically, when we create in ourselves, in our minds, a desired experience over and over and over again, and just do that like spaced repetition, like do it daily or something like that, it creates a new experience. We begin to have a new set of emotions. Even without the results showing yet, we have that new set of emotions because in our head, the results have already happened. I'm not talking about deluding ourselves. I'm not talking about faking it. I'm talking about deliberately saying, I'm going to sit down and have this experience for 5 minutes today. I'm going to experience what it will be like to be in a right-sized body, or to be whatever, to have that good relationship, to be in a better financial situation, to be in a healthier situation, whatever it be. I'm going to have more confidence. I'm going to spend 5 minutes experiencing that in my own head. Usually this is done within a form of meditation. As we do that, we begin that new identity. Yes, Cindy?
A couple of people are complaining of some feedback.
Okay.
I'm not sure if there's anything we can do about that.
Sure. I will try and put on a set of headphones. I'm going to use a different set than the kind that we tried earlier, Cindy.
Okay, all right.
And the problem is the headphones I tried earlier were muted. I don't know why or how, but they were. And so I'm going to ask for everyone to just patiently.
I'm not sure how many people are experiencing that, but Julie has her hand raised. Did you want to say something, Julie?
I just wanted to say hi. I am here for the first time, and I'm so grateful to be here with all of you.
Okay.
And I know Rob, and I'm so excited to hear about it. But thank you so much. I forgot to put my hand down.
Oh, is anyone else having any feedback issues? If you have, are you having a feedback issue? Could you raise your hand?
Okay. Hi, Kay. All right. I'm going to plug this in, and I'm going to start talking. I just need you guys to let me know with a thumbs up if you can hear me okay.
Not everybody, so I'm not sure if it's on your end or somewhere else, but I'm looking for hands raised if you have a feedback issue. Okay, I think it's just 1 or 2 people.
Okay, can you guys hear me all right?
Yeah.
Yeah, with thumbs up, we're sounding good? Okay.
It's better.
And,
All
and,
right.
It's better,
and Kay, is the feedback
you.
eliminated? Okay, good. Thank you.
much better.
Thank you.
All right, if everybody can mute themselves again. Thank you. Sorry for the interruption.
No, thank you. I really appreciate that. That's a good interruption, right? We want to have a good experience. I appreciate that, guys. Last point I just wanted to make is that as those behaviors become easier, the other piece that helps us change our identity is focusing on who we are becoming rather than what we are doing. Think of a basketball player, and I'm borrowing this, by the way, from Atomic Habits. If anyone has ever read the book, I'm not trying to plagiarize James Clear, but he shares the analogy of a basketball player playing the game. A basketball player spends very little, his goal or her goal is to change the scoreboard, right? To beat the other team. That is the goal. But they spend little, if any, of their time looking at the scoreboard. They spend most of their time looking at the ball, looking at their teammates, looking at the basket, which is where they're shooting for, and doing that. They are, and if you talk to, get a chance to talk to or listen to interviews with professional athletes, most of them spend a good deal of their time outside the game or outside the practice. They are mentally visualizing themselves making that basket or skiing down that slope or whatever their sport is. They are mentally walking through that sport over and over and over again. And before a game, many basketball players, many professional athletes will get themselves in that zone by mentally walking through all the different things they're doing, mentally walking through when this happens, here's how I'm going to do that. Here's me scoring those shots, okay? So focusing on who we are becoming, visualizing that constantly instead of what we are trying to do is really important. Now, so for us in Bright Line Eating, what we're trying to do is the 4 bright lines. And when I say don't focus on those, I'm not saying don't pay any attention to them, because obviously we need to do them and measure them. What I'm saying is that consider this: every day that you keep your lines bright, you are casting a vote for who you are becoming. And your focus, your mental focus, what you visualize should not be the bright lines, though that is something you want to do and something you want to check off. What you visualize is, I'm a healthy person. I am someone that has kept these lines bright. I'm healthy today. I'm healthy all around. I'm happy. I am enjoying this journey. Guys, the journey is, I started out over 370 pounds. And if my goal, if in my head I was going, I'll be happy when I'm 170, that would have been 200 pounds of misery. That journey would have been absolutely miserable and arduous. What it was instead is every day that I kept the lines bright, I would say, I'm healthy today. I'm a healthy man today. I am that guy that I'm becoming. And as I did that, every day could be happy. Every day could be joyful. Every day could be a celebration. Even a small one, it's great. You can celebrate. And if there's a slip up, there's no judgment. It's like, you know what? I'm going to go tomorrow. I'm going to cast a new vote for the new identity again. And you just keep doing that. And as you do, it becomes this cycle that builds on a positive cycle that builds on itself. So just for fun, because I'm going to show a photo. So this is my journey. These photos are actually just a year apart, but so the before photo is taken a few weeks into my Bright Line Eating journey, and the after photo is taken several weeks out from the end. But because boy, those last 5 pounds or those last 10 pounds take a while to come off, right? Most people have probably experienced that. But that kind of a change, that's just the outside. And I will tell you this for anyone that is looking to make a larger change with Bright Line Eating. I promise you, I absolutely promise you, the weight loss is the secondary. It's the second best change. It's the second best gift. The best gift is what happens between your ears. The best gift is who you become. You become a brand new, different person. And that is so exciting. So about halfway through my journey, I had a dear friend, and she's been in some of the groups, so I'm just going to call her Mary. That's not her real name, but for anonymity, we'll call her Mary. Mary came to me and said, oh my gosh, Rob, you've lost over 100 pounds at this point. Tell me what's going on. Tell me how you're doing it. And I shared with her about Bright Line Eating. And she got started, and she did massively well for like the first month and a half. And she dropped like 20 pounds, and she was so excited, and then fell off the wagon, fell in the ditch, and she had trouble getting back on. And she came back and said, how do you do this? How are you staying on? And I'd been someone that tried a million diets before Bright Line Eating and had fallen off, gotten back on, fallen off, gotten back on. And so I knew that drill. And I'd also been studying identity, and I shared with her, I said, I have changed my identity. My identity is different now than it ever was. And that is keeping me on track. And I, change your identity and you're going to have a much better experience. And she asked probably the best question in the world. Someday I will probably need to pay her like $10,000 for having asked this question. But she asked, how do you change your identity? And I said, probably the wisest thing I've ever said, which was, I have no idea. Let me go figure it out. And so I said, let me go think about it. So I went home and I thought about it and prayed about it and meditated and did writing and meditating and writing and meditating and writing. And I came back to her and I said, I have found 6 shifts, and I later discovered another one and added that in. I've found 7 shifts that I made in my life that when I make those shifts, and it had to be all of them, not in order, but it had to be all of them, when I shifted in each of these 7 areas, it allowed the identity change to happen. It wasn't like this big push. It wasn't this difficult thing anymore. The identity change happened, but I had to shift in each of these areas. I had to have a conscious, thoughtful, intentional change in each of these areas. So I want to share these areas with you. And again, I'm going to share them in order. I assign them each a number, but they're not steps. You don't have to do one and then the next one and then the next one. You can pick your favorite and start with that. As long as they're all in order at the end, or not in order, as long as they're all done, as long as you make all these shifts, that identity shift happens. Let me go ahead and share those. The first one for me was powerful thoughts. And what I mean by that, usually when I say this, someone will go, oh yeah, powerful thoughts, like I can do it, or I'm a winner, or whatever. And those are positive thoughts, which are great. They're very different, or just not exactly the same thing. Powerful thoughts is a shift in thinking from a creature who is acted upon to a creature who acts. A wise spiritual leader pointed out that in the grand division of all of God's creations, there are things to act and things to be acted upon. And then a different person, Benjamin Disraeli, said, man is not the creature of circumstances. Circumstances are the creatures of men. We are free agents, and man is more powerful than matter. When we accept the idea that we have power over our circumstances, we begin the journey of taking positive control of the tools that will shape and mold those circumstances. In other words, the very first step is just saying, not only am I capable of changing, but I'm actually designed to do it. It was intended for me. Regardless of your spiritual tradition, I don't want to push my spiritual tradition on anybody. I believe in God, but for those that don't believe in God, you may believe that the universe designed you, or for those that believe in God, that God designed you. However your belief is, you are designed, you are created to have control over those circumstances, to make a difference, to send out a new thought, a new way of doing things, okay? If you were not, you would not have been given a prefrontal cortex. You would not have been given the ability to think. You have been given the ability to think a thought that is different than your current results, okay? Animals do not have that ability. No other creature on this earth has that ability other than you and me, okay? We were designed for that purpose. Second one is, excuse me, powerful language. And this is a shift from the language of a victim to the language of a captain, or the language of a captive, I like to say, to the language of a captain. When we adopt the language, wording, and syntax of positive power and personal control, we increase our personal belief, our ability, and our commitment. Let me share some examples. Susan has one of the best examples, and that is Susan Pierce Thompson. She talked about, she no longer says, I can't eat that. She instead says, I don't eat that, or I choose not to. And that is a fantastic way to drive home to our subconscious the fact that we are in control, that we have personal power. Another one that I have found, have any of you ever said or heard someone say something like this? I need to do that. Yeah, I need to get back on track. I should probably start following the bright lines again. Should or need, anyone ever heard something like that? Nods, raise a hand, sure. Oh, okay. We've all done it, myself included. When you say, I need to, or I should, or yeah, I ought to, things like that, you are sending a signal to your subconscious. You're telling it that the motivation to do this comes from outside. It's not really yours. It's not your dream. It's not your motivation. It's somebody else wanting you to do that. It's somebody else telling you to do that. The thing that they're telling you to do may be the right thing. It may be a good thing. It may be exactly what you want to do. It may be what serves you. But that language suggests that you're not quite on board with it. That language suggests that you're resisting it just a little bit. You're rebelling. It's a language of rebellion. It's the language of a captive, someone who's in chains, chafing against those chains. Instead, may I suggest language like, I commit. I am totally committed to doing this. I am on board. I will. I can't wait to. I love to. When you use language like that, and the first few times you say it, you might go, oh, I feel like I'm kind of lying to myself. Okay? Again, the lying is only because your emotions haven't caught up with your new words yet. The emotions are still being fed by your current circumstances. That doesn't make those emotions true. It doesn't make your current circumstances true. They're not accurate. They don't reflect what you are capable of. So when you choose different words, you're not lying. You're just saying you're choosing the new you, the new program. And that is, I am committed to do this. I can't wait to do this. I am so excited to do this. I am in. I am all in. When you use language like that, try that sometime. Just try saying, I ought to do that, and see how you feel. Then try saying, I am absolutely committed to do that. If you do it, with a little bit of emotion, I mean, you get some goosebumps. You get a tingle in your spine. You feel differently. I want to point out that when you program your subconscious, you change your physiology. Your body responds, and your physiology and body chemistry change a little bit to adjust to this new command that you've just given it. Okay? And so language is super powerful. There's an exercise in my church community. I have had opportunities to volunteer with a young men's group a number of times, different young men. And when I teach them this principle, I will usually have one of the stronger, physically stronger young men come up to the front of the room, and I'll say, okay, John, we're going to do an experiment. I want you to say something 10 times, and then I'm going to have you put your arms out. You can't see this, but I'm putting my arms out to my sides, all right, like an airplane. And I'm going to take 2 fingers and put those 2 fingers on each of your wrists. I'm going to push your arms down to your side. I want you to resist. I want you to keep your arms up. So I'll have them say 10 times, I'm strong, I'm worthy, and I can do it. And then I'll try and push their arms down. And usually it's a real struggle. My face gets all red. I'm like, I can't get them down. And usually they keep their arms up. Then I'll say, okay, let's shift a little bit. I'm going to have you say something. And usually I'll have the group, as they're doing that, giving them a thumbs up, giving them positive reinforcement and encouraging them. But then I'll say, okay, let's shift. I'm going to have you say 10 times, I'm weak, I'm unworthy, and I can't do it. And as you're saying it, I want you to envision that. I want you to actually feel it for a moment. So it's not true, it's a lie, but I want you to feel it, pretend it, accept it as if it's true, because we're trying to accelerate the process for their learning experience, right? Accelerate the process or catalyze the process of what we do with our subconscious every day. So they will say that, and everybody in the room, I have them do a thumbs down, so they're giving them an ugly face and a thumbs down, just kind of giving them negative feedback, lack of support. And they say, I'm weak, I'm unworthy, and I can't do it. And as much as it hurts me, I'll add to that. I'll say, yeah, no, you are. You're weak, man. You cannot do this. And then I'll say, okay, same experiment. Put your arms out. Let's do it again. I'll put my 2 fingers on each of their wrists, and those arms almost always go right down to their sides. Boom, right down. Doesn't matter how strong he is. I did this with a guy that was over 250 pounds. He had formerly been a football player. Actually, no, I didn't do this. I was walking them through the exercise. A 120-pound woman did this to him, and his arms went almost all the way down. She got him like 3/4 of the way down. This guy was a football player previously in high school and college, and she had those arms almost all the way down. Invariably, at some point, one of this young man's friends will usually say, okay, wait a sec, Mr. Raines, hang on. You tuckered him out the first time. You got him all tired, and that's why the arms go down. I say, okay, well, that's fine. Let's test that theory. So then I have him say 20 times the positive phrase again. I'm strong, I'm worthy, and I can do it. And everyone's doing the thumbs up. And invariably, again, I or whoever else is trying this cannot get those arms back down. The point is that when we give a command and we believe it, we truly believe it, our body obeys that command. And I want to point out here that in between the negative and the positive, his muscles didn't double in mass. He didn't suddenly receive a rippling set of muscles. The capacity was already there. He released that capacity with his words. Your capacity, my capacity to follow bright line eating or to achieve whatever goal that we set is already there. We already have it. I don't care how much you've struggled in the past. Your capacity to follow it is already there. You just release it. You remove the limits. You open the floodgate. You release it when you use that powerful language. A third principle. Now, principles 1 and 2, the powerful thoughts and powerful language are really, really fun. I usually teach clients those at the very beginning, and they're a lot of fun because you get a whole lot of return on a very little investment, right? Changing your thoughts is not all that hard. Changing your words takes a little effort, but it's not all that hard, and you see a whole big difference, right? This third principle, it requires a lot more work. This is the one where you put in a lot more effort, and over time. It still brings in a great return, and I recommend it. But life, right? Anything worth doing is worth putting some effort into. So powerful knowledge is one where it's going to take a little bit more work, but it's a lot of fun. This is about a shift from trying to do it on our own, or trying to do it with our current knowledge, or trying to do it using the sources of knowledge that we've previously used, to seeking knowledge from those who are already achieving what we want to achieve, and having the humility. This part of powerful knowledge is having the humility to accept that I don't know everything. I don't have an understanding of all the laws that I need to understand. I need to learn more, and some of what I've already learned may not be accurate. Maybe it served me in the past, but it's no longer accurate, and I need to let it go and be willing to replace some of those beliefs. That takes some work. That takes a lot of humility, and it's not easy, but it is it's super helpful. Let me give you an example of how I used this in my journey early on. When maybe some of you have experienced this. If you're like me, how many have had or have mental or emotional discomfort, anxiety, when you feel hunger pangs, physical hunger pangs? Don't be embarrassed. We're all there. I had that too. Okay. So hunger pangs cause you some anxiety. They cause you some discomfort, not just physical discomfort, but you go, oh my gosh, you got to eat now, and you got to eat something. All right. And Susan says hunger is not an emergency, but saying, and I'm totally on board with Susan. She has this dead on. But for me, my experience was saying hunger is not an emergency did not help. I was like, it still feels like an emergency. It still doesn't feel good. So I said, I want to gather some more knowledge. I want to understand this better. Why is this bothering me so much? And so I went to the source of all knowledge, Google. Not really, but I did. I went to Google and said, all right, what causes hunger pangs? And I found some, well-researched articles and some different things. And here's what I discovered. I'll condense it down into a few seconds here. I discovered that your stomach, it's about the size of your fist. And when you eat a meal, it expands, gets bigger. And then the food leaves that stomach, goes out into your system and provides energy for you. But the stomach is still inflated. For it to get back to its normal size, it has to contract. Okay? So you actually, when you have hunger pangs, those are literally stomach contractions. They're just contractions, making it small again, right? Changing its size so that you can prepare for your next meal. Anyone that has ever had a baby totally understands contractions way better than I understand them. And you'll find that I'm uniquely not qualified to talk about contractions. But hunger pangs are the same thing. They're just contractions in reverse. Instead of making something larger, preparing for an event, you're making something smaller, preparing for an event, right? And that event is your next meal. So hunger pangs used to feel to me like lack, like hunger, like a problem, like a lack of abundance. What they really were, the hunger pangs are right here in the middle. They are literally a moment in between abundance and abundance. And as soon as I caught hold of that thought, I was like, this is not nearly as terrifying as I thought. I had abundance And that's why I need the contractions, so that I can prepare to have abundance again. And that's it. And I know the food's going to be there, right? We've got enough food. We've got our food plan. I know it's in the fridge. I know there's enough food. Abundance is there. That middle marking period, that hunger pang was just a marker letting me know I'm at the halfway point between abundance and abundance again. And guess I experience it all the time. And so every time, it's kind of like Pavlov, right? You know, that ring the bell, salivate. When I feel a hunger pang now, I go, oh goody, I'm gonna get to eat soon. Oh goody, I'm about to experience abundance again. And, probably another hour. It's okay. It doesn't bother me anymore. At this point, I've kind of tuned them out. They really don't bother me. And they did at the beginning of the journey, but I learned to tune them out because the hunger pangs, instead of being an enemy that agitated me to eat, they became a friend that said, your body is doing exactly what it should. Your body is on track and you're about to experience abundance again. Sit back, chill, and enjoy the ride. Okay? Again, the hunger pang didn't change. It didn't go away. I still have hunger pangs. What happened was the difference was that knowledge changed how I interpret what was happening. Okay, there are things in our life that we can't change. They're part of the natural order of things. I can't change when it rains here. I can't make my weather do what I want it to do. Okay, I'd love to sometimes have the moon stay out longer or the sun take longer to come up, but I have no control over that. But how I interpret those things, I have total control over that through, again, thoughts, language, and then knowledge that I seek to obtain. And that knowledge, again, needs to be accurate too. I love that everything Susan teaches is always, very science-based and experimented and tested and proved. So, which leads me to the fourth principle, the fourth shift is powerful tribe. This is a shift from going it alone to creating and joining a culture of support. The fact that you're here in this group, guys, you're already joining and being participatory in a culture of support. So congratulations, high five, you're already doing shift 4. You're already doing powerful tribe. It's amazing. But you've got other people that you associate with outside of here. And if you talk about other addictions, you talk about someone leaving alcohol behind, having an addiction to alcohol, leaving that behind, or addiction to hard drugs and leaving that behind, they usually will talk very freely about changing their associations. They take on a brand new group of friends, right? They start to go to AA meetings, and now they've got those friends, and they stop talking to the friends that are still drinking or still doing drugs, because that doesn't help. It just pulls them back to that old identity. So new group of friends, right? Well, I realized, for me in my journey, I realized I've got a family, and I can't just walk away. I can't just leave them behind. I need their support. And so I had to not only just join support groups, which I did on Facebook, but I had to create a culture of support. I had to encourage my family to join me in this journey. And so I made a deal with my kids. My then wife, we're currently divorced, but at the time we were married, and she and I have 7 children together, currently ranging in age from 8 to 22. And so I said, well, they're not going to eat according to Bright Line Eating. They're going to still have NMF. They're going to have some of my favorite NMF in the fridge and in the freezer. And so I'm going to have to figure out a way to get around this. So I said, I need to get them on board. So I made a deal with them, and I told each of my children, when I lose an amount of weight equal to what you weigh, I will put you on my back, carry you around the house, and we'll take a photo. And we'll have some fun with it. And I'll take you out on a daddy kid date. And so it encouraged them, because they were looking forward to the daddy kid dates. At least the younger ones were. The teenagers were like, all right, maybe we'll go shopping or something. But the younger kids were really looking forward to them. And I did that. I kept those daddy kid dates with them. And I lost an amount of weight that was more than each of my kids weighed, even the 22-year-old. And so I surpassed each of them in losing more weight than what they weighed. And kept those promises and put them all on my back, carrying them all at some point around the house, and taking a picture of it. My only one that did not allow me was my then 16-year-old, now 18-year-old, I never got a chance to put her on my back. She's not a fan of that. But she's like, yeah, you're cool, Dad. Just, you know, you're good. But that made a huge difference, and it was a lot of fun. Let me show you just some fun pictures. This is Spencer. At the time the photo was taken, he was 7 years old. He's now 8. This is Katie, who was 15 at the time. She's now 16. And this was me. This was when I had shed about 185 pounds. Their combined weight together was 185. And so I put both of them on my back, took a picture, carried them around a little bit. We had fun. It was a laugh. And I've taken them out on dates. In fact, Katie, my 16-year-old, she and I just had a movie date the other night. This wasn't our first one, but we watched Arachnophobia together. She was in the mood for a horror flick, and I said, well, I don't want real horror, but Arachnophobia is good enough. And sure enough, she reached out, touched me in the middle of the movie, and made me jump, and had just a completely hilarious experience with that. Teased me for a long time after that. The fifth shift is probably the most powerful one, probably the biggest change for me personally. And I call it powerful motivation. And that is a shift from being driven by fear to being driven by love. I don't follow good habits out of a fear of what will happen if I don't. I did at the very beginning, but now I follow good habits out of a love for the person I'm becoming as I do. And it's more than just how I feel about the habits. Guys, addiction of any kind, including food addiction, sugar addiction, any addiction is driven by fear. And by fear, that's an umbrella for all sorts of negative emotions. Fear, doubt, worry, anger, betrayal, all those things, they fall under that umbrella of what I'm calling fear. All of those trigger that primal brain, that R complex brain, that reptilian brain, whose job it is to defend us and protect us. And when that gets triggered, it goes into protection mode, and it usually encourages us with ferocity to dissociate from whatever the current discomfort is. And when we dissociate over a period of time, or when we dissociate enough times, we train the brain that form of dissociation works. It numbs the pain. And that thing, whatever it is, becomes an addiction. And so for some, it's food. For some, it's alcohol. For some, it's drugs. For some, it's pornography. For some, it is shopping. There's all sorts of different ways to dissociate. I can't tell you all the ways there are to dissociate. Video games, right? Just any way of not being present is dissociating. Now, we all dissociate little bits. How many of you have had this experience? You have a negative confrontation with a family member or a coworker, and you kind of, after a while, you kind of cross your arms and just go, I don't want to talk to that person for a little while. I'm going to go take a time out. I'm going to distance myself. I'm not going to say everything on my mind. I'm going to pull back, or I'm going to yell and push them away. But either way, I'm going to emotionally create distance between me and that person, right? How many have ever done that? This is a normal human response. This is dissociation. But when you use a coping mechanism over and over and over to dissociate, it becomes a habit. It becomes addictive, whatever it is. It doesn't always have to be a substance, but usually it is. And when we don't deal with that fear, the neural pathways stay there, and they stay full. And so any negative emotion that comes drives us instantly to that coping mechanism. And so if our coping mechanism was food, well, boy, you can have a stressful day. You can have a fight with a coworker. You can have a fight with a family member. You can whatever, and it's going to drive you to go pick up that NMF and put it in your face, and just you can try and feel better. When we shift that to being driven by love, and that it's fairly easy to do. I'll explain how I did it. When we make that shift, guys, love opens up the other two parts of the brain, and it tends to quiet that R complex, or what I call brain one, that reptilian brain. It opens up the limbic brain and the prefrontal cortex, which I call brain 2 and brain 3, which are really our heart and our mind, right? Our limbic brain is the seat of our emotions and desires. Prefrontal cortex is a seat of our logic and our moral center. Okay, so our heart and our mind. And those, I mean, for anyone of any spiritual tradition, how often does your spiritual tradition talk about your heart and your mind? All the time, right? Okay, for Christians, we're told that the Holy Ghost talks to us through our heart and through our mind. Okay, for Jewish people, very, very similar. Okay, in Islam, very similar thing. They talk a lot about the heart, the feelings of the heart, the thoughts of the mind. In other traditions as well, and I don't want to exclude any, but just in various traditions, they talk about the feelings that we have, our desires, and our thoughts. And again, all those spiritual traditions acknowledge that we have some level of control over those thoughts and over those desires. Okay. When we make that shift, we remove the need for fear to drive us, and we begin to take creative control of our vehicle, meaning our bodies and brains. Excuse me. Let me give you a quick technique that you can use. And this is a technique I share with clients. There's actually a few techniques I share, but one quick one is, as you feel negative emotions coming, pretend, visualize yourself that you are the driver of a bus. You're driving a bus around your town, and you come to a stop, you grab that big handle and you pull the door open, and on come some negative emotions, right? And I want you to call them out by name. When you feel them, call them out. Say, okay, anger, fear, betrayal, doubt, worry, welcome aboard. And here's what I tell them. I'll have a little conversation in my head with them. I will say, I am not authorized to deny you passage. Welcome aboard the bus. I am not authorized to deny you passage. Okay, because it's true. In this mortal journey, in this life, fear is part of that journey, right? We can't stop it. We can't eliminate it. Anyone that says, what's that line from The Princess Bride? Life is pain. Anyone that tells you differently is selling something, right? Right? Life has some pain and fear in it. Anyone that tells you can completely eliminate it from your life is full of baloney. Love them to death, but they're full of it. All right? It's going to be part of your journey, but it does not get to drive. And that is what I say. I say, fear, welcome aboard. You're welcome on my bus. I am not authorized to deny you passage. But the person that put me in charge of this bus, and I'll say for me, that's God. You can say that's universe or whatever you wish. But the person that put me in charge of this bus has authorized me to drive, and I'm the only authorized driver. You are welcome aboard this bus, but by God, you will not drive. Go sit in the back. Join me for the journey. You can stay on as long as you wish, but I'm going to be driving in good places. I'm going to be driving in places of light and joy. And my hope is that you get off this bus sooner than later. When you get off, that's great. Get off it whenever you wish. But I'm going to drive, and I'm going to go to the best places. Okay? And that's why I'm here today, is because with you guys, this is one of the better places. This is something that fills me with joy and light and gratitude, and not, well, tiny bit of fear because I'm talking to a bunch of people, but mostly joy, light, and gratitude. And the fear is easy to overcome, right? Guys, and that's what I want to say is, as you work to overcome your fears, to deal with, lean into them, process them, meditate on them, let everything come with no judgment. You might feel fear or shame or something about a specific event in your life. Lean into it, process it, acknowledge it, but with no judgment about yourself, no moralizing language, okay? That's another part of powerful language, is no moralizing language about yourself. Process that stuff, let it through, and it makes room for the positive to come in. I wish I could spend more time on that, but out of respect for time, I'm just going to keep kind of jumping on. The shift number 6 is powerful sacrifice, and it's twin of powerful gratitude. And this is a shift from what I'm losing or giving up to what I'm receiving in its place. There's a beautiful story of an ancient people who elected to stop their murderous and idolatrous ways and become a civilized, industrious, and reverent people. As part of this change, they held a sacred ceremony where they buried their swords deep in the earth as a testimony to God and to their fellow humans that they would become a new people. When we stop, and again, those fellow humans were their powerful tribe, right? They did it in front of their tribe and said, I'm going to make this sacred oath that I'm going to get rid of this thing that is a symbol of my addiction to an idolatrous and a murderous life. And we need to do the same thing. When we stop pining at, or we get to commit to do the same thing, when we stop pining after the thing we are giving up and instead choose to focus on the benefits we are receiving, our focus affects our attitude and our emotional well-being, making good habits easier to keep. I did not actually walk into my backyard and dig a hole and bury flour and sugar, but in my head, I buried them. I buried them deep. And just like this people that I mentioned, they buried their swords. No handle sticking up. Everything was buried all the way deep in the earth, right? Same thing with flour and sugar. We want to bury that and just not have it be part of our journey anymore. And that means when you get together with family and you connect with them, you find different ways to connect other than food, okay? When you celebrate a victory, you find different ways to celebrate other than food. When you lean in, when you cry about your sorrows, when you cry about the difficulties you're experiencing, because that's part of life. That is okay to do, guys. You can jump in and say, I am having a tough day. It's okay to sorrow. It's okay to cry. It's okay to have a difficult time. But just, you don't do it with food. You find a different way. Write a poem, sing a song, say a prayer, hug somebody, whatever. Find a different way. Hold somebody's hand. Find somebody to help and serve them. So find somebody who's in a tougher situation than you and serve them. Whatever it is, you make new traditions, brand new traditions. That is your right. That is your privilege, is to create traditions with which you anchor that change that you've made in your life. And talking about anchor, well, actually, I'll mention this in the next one. The seventh shift, the last one, and this, part of this is borrowed from James Clear's book, Atomic Habits. James Clear doesn't know I exist. He doesn't know that I'm promoting his book. He's not paying me a dime to tell you how awesome his book is, but I absolutely recommend that you read the book Atomic Habits by James Clear. And in chapter 2, he talks about how our habits shape our identity and how our identity then shapes our habits. I didn't read his book until halfway through my journey. I had already done a whole lot of identity work. But when I read that, I just went, oh my gosh, this guy totally has it. So I'm recommending his book because he explains it really, really well. This seventh shift is a shift from an outcome-based focus to an identity-based focus. Our habits help change our identity, and our identity helps reinforce our habits. As we change our focus to our identity, the habits more naturally follow. And I want to point this out too. And again, this may vary with different spiritual traditions, but I know for a fact in the Judeo-Christian spiritual traditions, and this may be in other traditions as well. So I encourage people of other faiths to kind of educate me and help me find some of these examples. But you may notice that anciently and in modern times, when people made or make a covenant with God, very often they will change their names or he will change their name. All right. Examples from the Bible are Abraham. Abraham was Abram and his wife Sarai, and they became Abraham and Sarah. Jacob's name became Israel. Saul of Tarsus became Paul. There are numerous examples through various faith traditions of people that changed their name when they made a covenant to become a new person. And that name change, because our name it's an anchor, it's a part of our identity, it's a part of who we are. When we change our name, we're inviting ourselves mentally. I'm not suggesting you run out and change your name, guys. That's not my shtick. But what I'm saying is that for those people, changing their name was an anchor to who they were. They became a different person. It reminded them of the new set of habits, the new covenants, the new promises that they had made to themselves. And when we begin Bright Line Eating, we also make a new set of habits. And for some people, that may even be as strong as a covenant. I made a new set of habits, okay? And that was 4 bright lines, that I was going to keep the 4 bright lines. In addition to that, I made 3 additional promises to myself based on my faith tradition. And those were that I would stop doing harm to myself or others. And some of that harm was just in my irritability and because I didn't like who I was doing harm, unintentional harm, but I was doing harm to my then wife and my children by not being as present a father and a husband as I could have been. That I would stop doing harm to myself and others. I would stop the process of using food as a coping mechanism, which was affecting me and it was affecting those around me. That I would sacrifice. I would find opportunities to give to others instead of taking from them. I would become a giver. And the third is that I would become industrious, that I would become hardworking. Not that I was lazy before, but guys, frankly, when you do Bright Line Eating all in, you suddenly find yourself with a whole lot more time. I hope you do. I did. I found myself with a whole lot. I was no longer having to recover for an hour in front of Netflix after a huge meal. I found I didn't spend nearly as much time in the restroom. I didn't spend nearly as much time driving out of my way to go find special foods. I had a whole lot more time on my hands. And I was sleeping better so I could get up earlier and feel better. And as I did that, I had to figure out what I was going to do with that spare time. And so I would begin to use it to serve others, to serve my family first, to do self-care and to take care of others. And that made a huge difference. So the question that I would ask you is, what will you become? There's a fantastic quote from another spiritual leader who said, God left the world unfinished for man to work his skill upon. He left the electricity in the cloud, the oil in the earth. He left the rivers unbridged and the cities unbuilt. God gives to us the challenge of raw materials, not the ease of finished things. He leaves the pictures unpainted and the music unsung and the problems unsolved, that we might know the joys and glories of creation. I submit to you that in crafting your new identity, you are participating in the glories of creation. You are solving one of the deepest problems that there is, and that is, how do we become better than we were? How do we change? And how do we do it even when circumstances around us are not ideal and when we don't feel like it? Guys, when you make that change inside, when you shift that identity inside, it doesn't matter if COVID is happening outside. It doesn't matter if you're in quarantine. It doesn't matter that there are protests and riots in various places. And don't get me wrong. I mean, those things matter. They're important. Okay, they have a deep impact on us. But I'm saying that those things cannot stop your journey, because what's pushing your journey is who you are inside. You are becoming a person who derives more joy from what is already inside than from what you put in from outside. And that makes all the difference. If anyone wants to reach out, here's some contact information. I love the identity change that I've discovered. I love it so much that I look for opportunities to share it with other people. And it's something I've made a commitment to kind of talk about every day, to share it with somebody every day, to teach my children, to teach other people, to help them with this. So if you know someone that is looking for identity change, reach out. I would be glad to have a conversation with them. One group of people, and I applaud Buck and Marty who are here. I applaud all of you that are here, but I'm reaching out or calling out Buck and Marty, because this is especially hard for guys. We when it comes to admitting change, when it comes to admitting we've got a struggle, and when it comes to powerful tribe, we're frankly not as good at it as you ladies. We really aren't. If that's just a Y chromosome thing, I don't know why, but that's one of my missions, is to reach out to men that are struggling and to kind of help them along that journey. And so if you've got husbands or men in your life that are struggling, I would love an opportunity to have a conversation and chat with them. I just want to share my experience that changing my identity has made a massive change for me. I became a healthy person in my head years, or months, many months before I became a healthy person in body. I encourage you to make that change, whatever change you are trying to make. This shift in identity, especially shift number 5 of changing from fear to love, that has changed not only my eating lifestyle, but that changed my parenting style and made me a better dad, vastly better dad than I was. And I wish those awesome moments in your journey for you. And that's it, guys. Thanks so much.
Thank you so much, Rob. Thank you. You are so inspiring. And I'd like to just open it up to anyone that may have any questions for Rob on how, or because I know there's a couple of comments in there, people just thanking you. So be sure you take a look at those. Let's see, I was trying to see if I could read them, but they're coming in. So if anybody would like to raise your hand and ask a question or make a comment at this time, we would like to hear from some of you. And again, thank you so much for your amazing example to us and sharing these powerful shifts with each of us. They are just really do speak to us. It truly is such a remarkable journey we're all on together, and talking about our powerful community. Yes, we are here together as this powerful, powerful community, and none of us can succeed, and at least in my opinion, none of us can truly succeed long term without having the support of others. That has certainly been true for me. I was a horrible isolator before Bright Line Eating, and this program, this community has cured me from being an isolator most of the time. So anyway, I so appreciate it. Let's see, I'm trying to read some of the comments. Everybody's saying thank you, thank you. In your text, you said something about next steps. Was there something beyond that we?
Oh, next, it was more next steps, like just to reach out if, you know, I love to share additional information. I love to share, you know, documents and things like that. Would be more than happy to do that for anyone that has additional questions and so forth. I'm happy to answer some questions here too, but some things, like when I work with clients, it's usually over like an 8-week period or longer, because, you know, there's only so much you can share in an hour, but
Right.
you know, there's a whole lot that we can share, you know, in continued conversations.
Someone was asking about the recording, and I'll be posting that in a couple of places. You're welcome to reach out to me on that as well. Who wrote the poem? Evelyn wanted to know. I'm not sure what the poem.
Sorry, which poem? Oh, with the ending thing, the one about the glories of creation.
Yes. Yes.
That was the late Thomas S. Monson.
Thank you.
Sure.
I don't know if I've missed some of the comments that have been kind of coming in. Mostly like thank yous. If I missed anyone, please do not hesitate to raise your hand and speak up. Unmute yourself and ask your question or make a comment if you'd like. Kay, go ahead, please.
I wondered, and I wrote it down. You say that you visualize this perfect right-sized body. Do you just see yourself? Do you just close your eyes and sort of see yourself?
That is a great question.
I'm having a hard time doing that. Just talk to me.
Understandably, no, I did too. So let me shift that a little tiny bit. I started out trying to visualize a right-sized body, and I honestly had trouble because for most of my life I didn't have one. I actually found a picture of me going to my, I think, junior prom in high school, and I pulled that out and, you know, cut the gal out. She married someone else, and I laminated this picture of me in a tux, and I said, well, it's about the right size. But the truth is, it looks so much younger. I had trouble visualizing myself in a right-sized body. What I visualized instead was me being healthy, doing healthy actions, being a healthy person. And so, because truthfully, your mind, again, you can program it to do and believe very vastly different things than you currently believe, but they have to also be kind of believable. And so when I was 370 pounds, looking in the mirror, going, I'm a 170-pound man, that didn't carry any water. That could not work because I didn't look like it. But I could look in the mirror and I could say, I'm a healthy man today. I'm a healthy man today. And I began to, so I did begin that practice of trying to visualize a right-sized body, but it didn't really work too well. I instead began to visualize being a healthy person, who I was becoming. Not what I would look like, but who I would become.
Okay.
And so I have, for example, I'll be glad to share one of the affirmations or mantras that I read. I have 3 different affirmations, actually more than 3, but 3 different ones that are scheduled every day on my calendar. On my phone will go off with an alarm at 10:10 in the morning, 2:02 in the afternoon, and 7:07 in the evening. Those are just random times. I just picked them to kind of, you know, pick times. But they go off with 3 mantras. And my evening mantra every day is, I am so happy and grateful that I'm a loving, present husband, father, and provider. I'm not currently a husband, but hope to be at someday. But I'm so happy and grateful now that I'm a loving, present father and provider. Things like that. I'm focusing on not what is the circumstance, what is the specific habit, but who I am becoming, who I am. Because what does a loving and present father do? Well, all the habits that I want to do are things that a loving and present father does. And so as I drive that, as I reprogram myself day after day to be a loving present father, then I more naturally notice the moments where a child needs some help or a child has a question and go, hey, you know what? I'm going to put down my work and I'm going to pay attention to this child. Or do you know what? These kids have been fighting for the last couple hours. They probably have a lot of extra energy. Instead of getting angry and yelling, why don't I take them to the park and let's all go play? Let's get off some of that energy in a healthy way. That choosing who we're becoming and seeing yourself in those tough situations, handling them well, that's what I visualize. So I visualize walking in. You can do this too. You'll visualize yourself going into a buffet with a friend and going, you know what? Let me grab the salad today. I'm going to have the healthy stuff. Or visualize yourself dealing with a tough situation with a teenager, for anyone that has teenage children, and visualize yourself listening instead of reacting. And those sorts of things will help and guide you in finding those moments.
Thank you for being specific. I appreciate that.
Of course.
Thank you for that question, Kay. That was great. Anyone else want to raise your hand and ask any other questions of Rob? I'm not seeing any others. I would like you to address, Rob. Some of the people know that I had a bit of a break this week. So I would like you to address what happens when you have a less than bright day, or how have you handled that in the past, or how would you suggest, what has worked? What do you offer for that?
Okay. I'm going to share, with your permission, actually, I'm going to ask for everyone's permission to share a scriptural story for this. Again, I don't want to push a faith tradition on anybody, but the behavior is outlined in this story better than I could outline it myself. Would everyone be all right if I shared a story from the New Testament, from the Bible? Is that all right? Okay.
Go for it.
All right. Awesome. This is one of my favorite stories, but this is a story about Jesus Christ, and a woman was brought to him. She had been caught in the act of adultery and was brought before him, and the men that took her in this act asked Jesus, they were trying to trick him, and they said, the law of Moses, this thing we've been living for years, says that we should stone her. Now that was not then the current tradition. No, but nobody had been stoning for quite some time. But they said, law of Moses says we should stone her, but they knew he had been teaching mercy and that was probably not going to be his answer. But if he went against the law of Moses, they'd have an opportunity to arrest him and take him to jail. So they were trying to catch him to say the wrong thing. He either had to go against his teaching and say, yeah, stone her, or he had to say, no, don't stone her, in which case they could drag him off to jail. So it was a kind of a lawyer trick. And so they said, all right, what should we do? Obviously, their care was not for her. Their care was for tricking him. And he did a series of things in order. And I want to point out that order because it's going to answer your question, Cindy, but it's also going to share with each of us how to handle somebody else that has a break, as well as handle ourselves when we have a break. The very first thing is he stooped down and wrote on the ground with his finger. He wrote in the sand on the ground and ignored everybody else for a few minutes. He had men, and I'm gonna be judgmental for a second and say wicked men, clamoring around him, calling for the death of this woman, and threatening her with physical harm. And the very first thing he did was shut everyone out and create a safe space for himself. He wrote on the ground, you cannot give anyone else a safe space unless you've got one first yourself. He took a moment, paused, breathed. He did an action that for him anchored, and he created a safe space for himself. Your anchoring action may be different than his. You don't have to write on the ground, but you might meditate, you might pray, you might sing a song, you might repeat an affirmation or a mantra. You might do a breathing exercise like the beautiful ones that we did at the beginning of this meeting. Whatever that is, he anchored himself first and created a safe space within himself to deal with the threats outside. The very second thing he did was say to the men that were threatening her, let him who is without sin among you cast the first stone. This is just my guess. I'm not claiming to know more about this story than anybody else does, but this is just my guess, that unless he had created a safe space within himself, he would not have had the wisdom to receive that answer. When we create a safe space within ourselves and we're calm and peaceful, we receive answers better. We receive intelligence and wisdom that is specific to us, that we can use to combat the specific situations in our lives. I have found that to be true in my life. And I encourage you to test that in your own lives. And he said, who was without sin among you, let him cast the first stone. And all of them instantly realized, yeah, we're guilty. And it says that they started at the oldest and continued on until the youngest. And they all dropped their stones and walked away. The second thing he did was remove the physical threat, the threat to her physical safety. Okay? We get on board sometimes, we get really preachy about we should be doing this, we should be doing that. Your lines aren't right. We get on ourselves, we get on other people. We become what I used to call myself a judgy pants, right? We get a little bit judgy. The truth is, that is the preaching of the correct doctrine is the last thing that you need to be doing. That it is a step, but it's the last step. Removing harm, removing physical, creating yourself a safe space, and then removing physical harm is the first two steps. The next step he did is he did all this by asking questions, not by stating things, not by pointing, but by asking questions first. Is the third thing he did after creating physical safety for her is he created emotional safety. He said, "Woman, where are thine accusers? Is no one left to accuse thee?" And she answered, "None, Lord. No one's here." He said, "Neither do I accuse thee." Boom. Emotional safety. Excuse me. I want to point out, he eliminated an angry mob of men with rocks, but he did it without picking up a rock or a stick himself. He did it with words. He used words to create a safe physical space and then a safe emotional space for her. And after doing those things in that order, the last thing he said, the very last thing he said was, "Neither do I condemn thee, go and sin no more." The last thing he did was teach the doctrine or the principle. When you find yourself in a break of lines, or when you find a beloved friend in a break of lines, you want to do it in this order. First, create within yourself a safe space. If you are struggling with anxiety, anger, hurt, fear, you're not going to be able to pour much into their cup. You want to get yourself quiet and calm first. Secondly, remove physical threats. Remove things that are causing them to feel unsafe. Okay? If they're in, for example, if they're in an abusive situation, bright line. I have talked to someone in an abusive situation, and I told her, I said, on it, and she was like, "Rob, I feel terrible. I'm not keeping my bright lines." I said, "Stop. Bright lines out the window. The very first thing you need to do is remove yourself from the abusive situation. You need to get yourself to physical safety. I'm not even going to talk about bright lines until you are physically safe. I don't care if you eat a pound of cake. You are physically unsafe. Let's get you to safety, and then we can talk about the next step." Third step, create for them an emotionally safe space. This is done with zero judgment. You cannot be judging as you do this. I cannot judge when I do this. I have to listen with no judgment and sometimes I'll use those words to create that safe space and say, so I would say to Cindy, if I were talking with her about this break, I would say, "Cindy, you can share anything with me right now. There's going to be no judgment. I care about you. I love you. We are friends. You can say anything to me, and I'm not going to walk away. I'm not going to stop being your friend. I'm not going to think any differently of you. I'm not going to think poorly of you, and I'm not going to criticize you, and I'm not going to doubt you, and I'm not going to be disappointed in you. We're just going to talk together through whatever you're feeling, and we're going to look at it clinically, no judgment." Okay? Does that sound fair? And as I do that, that creates an emotional safe space. And then the last thing to do is, sure, you can teach the principles. Guys, watch some of Susan's vlogs when she gives examples of how to talk to people. She does this. She's really, really good at creating an emotionally safe space. I can say that personally because I did an interview with her last week and I was feeling very anxious. And you just have to know, like I got to get on that call with her 5 minutes before she opened it up to everybody. So what you didn't see was Susan going, honey, you are just fine. You are going to do great. I'm so grateful. You look great. You know, this is exciting. You're going to do just fine. She was creating this beautiful, safe, emotional space. I couldn't help but fall forward. Sure, I felt awkward. Sure, I stumbled a little bit. But the point was, she created this safe space where it was okay to stumble. It was okay to be imperfect. It was okay to be those things. She's a master at creating that safe space. And when we do that, we create a space where people can share. And when people share, guys, you're going to see this if you're helping someone else through their bright lines. When someone begins to share and they share all those things, that honesty, oh my gosh, you're going to hear stories, more stories than you had expected. Guys, when you tell those stories, it takes away their power. We all have a story inside of us that tells us why we're not good enough. We have a story inside that tells us why we are unworthy. We have a story that tells us why we're not good looking, or why we're fat, or why we are incapable, or why we're not enough. And when we tell those stories, when we share those things, it takes away their power. And we begin to go, oh, you know, I need to question that story. That story's no longer serving. It's not true. It's baloney, right? So you create a safe space where people can tell those stories. And then the very last thing you do is go, hey, yeah, okay, so that sugar bright line, what do you want to do about that? What are we going to do about that? Massive difference in going, oh, geez, yeah, you got to keep those bright lines. That doesn't, you know. When someone's struggling and losing a Gideon game for you, last thing you want to do is jump on them and create shame. Shame is just going to trigger more eating. You want to create those physical and emotional safe spaces and show them how loved they are. And then say, okay, how are we going to walk and do this together? Makes a huge, huge difference. So Cindy, I encourage you to answer that question. Create that safe space within yourself. Talk to yourself. Envision another person having the exact same problem or challenge that you're having. And what would you say to them? And say those exact same words to yourself. You call yourself by name. Cindy, I love you. We're going to create a safe space here together, and we're going to walk through this together. How are we going to do this?
Thank you, Rob. That is so beautiful. I know I would certainly agree. There's no place in our journey here for shame. I think shame is what got so many of us here, is shame. And I have found for myself that incorporating as much as I can in the way of self-compassion is really wonderful. So thank you so much. That is part of what did definitely help me this week. Does anybody else have anything else they want to, before we close, any other questions we want to have addressed today? I don't see any other hands. Again, Rob, thank you so very much for our time together with you today. It was truly inspiring, and you always touch our
Cindy?
hearts. Yes.
Sorry to interrupt. Lori Faith has asked a question and comments for Rob.
Oh, sorry, I missed that.
Yeah.
Let me open up the comments here.
Lori, can you speak that question? Do you want to just ask it? Because I cannot see it at the moment. Is she not available?
So if it's all right, Lori, I'm going to go ahead and read it. You wrote it to everyone, so I think it's all right to share it. It said, I developed hiding behaviors primarily around eating at 15 years old. I'm still fighting that war, back in boot camp for my third time in Brightline Mind. Besides the obvious isolating, what advice do you have for hiding behavior? I'm specifically talking about hiding behavior. I live alone and falling out of integrity with commits I've made to myself about NMF, especially S foods. I'm a 10++ sugar addict. Oh, I totally relate. Totally relate, hon. I am a 10++ sugar addict here too. I'm great and on track until I'm not. Moderation does not work for me. Oh, same here, same here. By the way, my hiding behavior at 15 included bulimia. Oh, that's not an experience I've personally had, but my heart goes out to you. That has got to be so difficult to deal with. I ended up in the hospital, near-death experience. Hiding behaviors got worse. That is a fantastic question. I will give a short answer here for time's sake. But I would, Lori, I would be more than, we're friends on Facebook. I'd be more than happy to connect offline and give you a larger answer, because that really deserves a larger answer than what we can do here. With hiding behaviors, there's usually a fear related behind that. In many addictions, that fear is called protecting the supply. If anyone that's been in a recovery program is probably familiar with that term, protecting the supply, that you are protecting whatever emotion, whatever boundaries and protections you've put around that your stock, that's like protecting the food, not throwing it out, protecting the alcohol cabinet, whatever it is. Those hiding behaviors are part of protecting the supply. And I relate because I did that too. I would eat normally when people were around. I was close to 400 pounds. It was not a surprise to anybody that I wasn't eating properly. But I would eat normally when people were around. And then as soon as everybody left, I would go and have, second dinner and third dinner like a hobbit. Just grab all those extra meals and everything else. With addressing hiding behavior, what some initial things to do would be to start writing your emotions, just journaling. No judgment. Is really, really, really important that you not use moralizing or judging language about yourself. Just write down the actual feelings, not who you are because of them. Okay. So for example, if I'm writing, I would be like, I felt angry today, or I felt frustrated and then I ate. That's it. Not I'm a bad person because I ate, or I gave in, or I was weak. Nope. Just I felt frustrated and I ate. Just the feeling and the action, nothing else, no judgment. Second thing is start keeping track of those. Write about all those experiences. The more you write, and the more you can write about what's going on at that time, the more you're going to find data, powerful knowledge, shift 3, right? The more data you're going to gather to say, oh, hey, you know what? Every time I interact with Joe, I tend to feel anxious. Or every time I think about my parent or my sibling, I feel anxious, and it creates whatever. You're going to find a pattern. Secondly, when you write things and put them out in the open, it starts to take away some of the fear. And so hiding is no longer as needed, because you don't have anything to hide from, because you're putting it all out there in the open. Again, the change in behavior is going to come later, but what you're trying to do is get rid of the change in fear first. Okay. Love yourself no matter what food behaviors happen. Love yourself, and just work on just being very, very open about the hiding, because that hiding is covering up a fear of what it might be. It's different, a little bit different for everybody. Mine was a fear of what other people would think of me. Yours might be that. It might be a fear of what you would think, a fear of what other people might think or say. If you trace it back, you're going to find an experience where someone said something or did something that caused you harm. And going back into that, replaying it differently, putting yourself in their shoes and in your shoes, and forgiving everybody in that scene, and including the younger you. Those are fantastic ways to, find that healing and to begin that shift, powerful motivation, that shift from fear to love. Hopefully that's helpful. It's a really condensed answer, but I'd be glad to connect offline and give you a little bit more. Hopefully that's helpful. Thank you, Buck, for calling my attention to that.
Excellent. Thank you again, Rob. And thank you everyone for being part of our time together. We're doing this the first Saturday of every month. I'm inviting a different speaker to come speak to us on the Zoom call. And then on every Wednesday at 8:30 a.m. Pacific time, I'm doing just a kind of a roundtable discussion around some type of a topic. This coming Wednesday, we'll be further discussing body awareness and body acceptance on this coming Wednesday at 8:30. So, Rob, again, so much appreciation. So grateful to be on this journey with you, and just love every one of those 7 powerful shifts that we make. And I would definitely say amen to each of those. I feel like they all are just so important for us to be able to incorporate, so that we can truly embrace BLE as a lifestyle. And again, so much gratitude. So thank you, everyone, and Rob, for being here today.
Thank you.
Have a beautiful, bright day.
Thanks, Rob.
Thanks, everybody. Thank you so much.
Thank you. That was great.
Yeah.
Hi, Holly.
Thanks, Rob. That
Thanks,
was
Rob.
really neat.
Thank you.
Thank you, Buck. My pleasure.
Thank you, Rob.
Thank you.
Alrighty.
Thank you, Rob.
Thank you so much, guys. Thank you. Love
Bye-bye.
you guys. Thanks.
So wonderful to have so many people with us today. Well, Rob, please thank your children again, too, for letting us steal you away for almost 2 hours on a Saturday. It was just really lovely to be with you again.
That I will. That I will.
Yeah.
Thanks so much.
All right. You take care and have a great day.
Take care, Cindy. You too.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye.